It's a slow time for new releases on PlayStation VR as we patiently wait for games like Do Not Open and Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 to tide us over until PSVR 2 gets here. Luckily though, there are 3 sales going on right now on the PlayStation Store. Mid-year deals, Level Up, and games under $20, all of which end on July 6th. So let's check them out and see if there's anything worthwhile on sale. The Dead Man DLC reuses a lot of assets from the core game. It's surprisingly short and isn't terribly well optimized. But if you already have Arizona Sunshine and you want to experience everything it has to offer, well, it's only $1. Play it with a friend for the best experience. Alright, now this is more like it. The damn DLC introduces an entirely new location, some creepy situations, and a much longer campaign than the Dead Man DLC. And for only $2? I mean, why not? Listen, Ark Park really isn't as bad as the reputation that it has. There are a ton of cool dinosaurs to see, items to craft, eggs to hatch, and the devs even added full locomotion and improved the resolution after launch. But ultimately, it's all just a lot of busy work to disguise a pretty mundane wave shooter, and I can't say I've ever had much fun. Considered one of the best third-person platformers ever made, Astrobot not only has awesome level design and a ton of collectibles, but also an adorable mascot and amazing soundtrack. Add to that some great VR integration, and Astrobot is a must-have for any PSVR owner, especially for the price. A-Tech Cybernetics starts off extremely promising with a dark atmosphere that gives off some serious Dead Space vibes, but within an hour it devolves into a pretty generic first-person shooter, and nothing past the opening stage has the same level of polish or intrigue that you'd expect. It's playable, but it's really generic. I'm not really sure how I feel about baby hands. On the one baby hand, there's a ton of things to do, items to collect, minigames to play, and a lot to discover. On the other little baby hand, the environments look pretty terrible, and the controls leave a lot to be desired. Honestly, if you're interested, I'd wait for a deeper sale. This one feels right at home around $5 or so. Raw data developer Servios tried their hand at ship-based combat with Battlewake and almost nearly succeeded. Controlling the ship was a blast, but the combat was monotonous and the gameplay ultimately felt really shallow. It was fun for an afternoon, but even the multiplayer modes didn't have me coming back after I finished the review. Unlike Incuvo's other VR port, Layers of Fear, which I'm going to talk mad about later in this video, Blair Witch VR is really well done. From the stunning visuals to the perfect controls, Blair Witch VR was just what I needed when it came out late last year. Sadly though, only the deluxe edition is on sale, so if you're looking for some more significant savings, you might want to wait until the standard edition goes on sale instead, which it has a few times already for about $18 to $20 or so. It's pretty much a rail shooter with some exploration and a ton of cutscenes, but Blood and Truth really does deliver on putting you in the lead role of an explosive action movie. Expect a ton of shooting and climbing in this 5-hour adventure, and even some minigames that were added as DLC after launch that support the aim controller. There's some really good stuff going on in Chess Ultra, but none of it is worth talking about when the graphics are so blurry that it's actually easy to mistake one chess piece for another. Boxing in VR is pretty cool, and Creed Rise to Glory, for the most part, is a great example of how to do it properly. Learning to block and jab while moving around the ring feels right, and slowly making your way from being an unknown fighter to champion bouts is really fun. The movement options are weird though, and the stamina meter constantly reminds you that you're playing an arcade game rather than a sim, but those issues are pretty easy to get used to. If you've ever wanted to experience what it feels like to be an astronaut floating out in space, you can't go wrong with Detached. It has a ton of frustrating moments and some horrible checkpoints, but for $5, you've got to check this one out and test the strength of your VR legs. Having to play through the lackluster flat screen campaign in Disaster Report 4 in order to unlock the VR stages was bad enough, but what makes it even worse are the blurry, unpopulated VR stages that don't offer full locomotion. Instead, you slide from node to node in big empty areas that lack the detail and NPCs of the flat screen counterparts. It is somewhat unique in the fact that it allows you to experience earthquakes and buildings collapsing in VR, but the cool moments here are really few and far between. Possibly sporting the biggest open world scene yet in VR, Skyrim VR takes the entire game and shoves it into VR pretty damn well. It looks great and plays great with very few exceptions, so while I absolutely recommend picking this one up, it does need to be said that the sale price here isn't all that attractive. Skyrim VR has been on sale for about $15 or $20 plenty of times already, so if you've been waiting, you might as well wait a little longer and get a better deal. Seriously, just get high and play it. I know Spire 1 has come a long way since launch. There's no longer mandatory blinders that block your entire view, button mapping is improved, and a lot more challenges have been added, but there's still some serious 3D audio problems that are inexcusable for a stealth game, and honestly, it's just not that much fun. So if you dive in, keep your expectations low, because Spire 1 has painfully average written all over it. Despite the lack of multiplayer and some seriously annoying caddies, Everybody's Golf VR is still a good time. The 3 courses look great, the physics are realistic, and there's enough here to unlock to keep you coming back for quite a while. $12 for all 5 chapters of the Exorcist Legion Vr is an awesome deal. It's not deep gameplay-wise and feels more like a walking sim than anything else, but every chapter has some truly scary moments. The last few times I played, there were still some problems with some random bugs, but for the price, it's probably worth the risk if you're a horror fan. Probably the best first-person shooter on PSVR, Farpoint not only has a stellar 5 to 6 hour single-player campaign, but also plenty of co-op missions, a fun 1v1 versus mode, and a progression system that levels up your weapons the more you use them. In fact, Farpoint might be the best reason to own an aim controller. Controlling your feet with move controllers can take some time getting used to, but if you love soccer and have friends that do too, for $2, this is a pretty decent game. Sadly though, the learning curve just isn't really worth it for the rest of us. For the most part, I absolutely loved Fracked. It has a beautiful art style that supports dynamic resolution, the cover system feels perfect, and there's plenty of climbing, zip lines, and arcade-style reloading to make it feel VR AF. The downside though is that it's over almost before it starts, clocking in at just 2.5 hours. Still, not bad for the price. Rhythm games are great. Hatsune Miku VR is not. The gameplay just feels too chaotic and random to make me think that any real thought was put behind the mapping. If you do happen to already own it though and enjoy it, the 3 different DLC packs are also on sale for $9 each instead of $12. But for everyone else, this is easy to skip. Any fan of the PSVR launch title Headmaster is bound to enjoy the additional levels that are found here in this $5 add-on called The Lost Lessons. So if you love Headmaster and you need more levels, pick it up. If you don't love Headmaster, this isn't going to change your mind. There's so much content already in Hitman 3 without expensive DLC that it's kind of easy to skip the 7 Deadly Sins collection, especially when they don't introduce any new maps, and with Hitman, that's exactly what I'd be looking for. But if you're a huge fan of Hitman and you're okay with reusing maps in a new series of escalations, then hey, at least it's half price. Let me ask you a question. Do you like staring at blurry stars in VR? Well, do you? Dude, sometimes games are so bad that they're not even worth picking up for $1.50. Horror Adventure VR is one of those games. I completely forgot that Human Anatomy VR even existed, and that's probably because it's not even remotely a game. It's a textbook. Sure, it's similar to every other cooking sim out there, and it's blurry as hell, but I did actually enjoy I'm Hungry. Just be warned that it's a little buggy and light on content, so only get this one if you desperately need another cooking sim. I've been very clear about my issues with Iron Man VR. The cutscenes are boring, all movement outside of the Iron Man suit is teleport only, and it's kind of wave shootery. But man is it fun. Taking off from the ground is a fantastic feeling, and once you get the hang of the controls, flying around and swapping out weapons on the fly is a blast. Despite a few bugs, some more serious than others, Killing Floor Incursion is great to blast through in 2-player co-op. It looks kind of amazing for a PSVR 1 game, packs in plenty of weapons and enemy physics to mess around with, and even has some fun puzzles to keep things interesting. I always struggle when it comes to Layers of Fear VR. The story is decent, and there's plenty of memorable moments, but man is it ugly. It looks like a straight port from Quest 1 with bland environments and almost non-existent lighting. And for a horror game where atmosphere is everything, yeah, it kinda kills some of the immersion. I love my cat, and while Neko Atsume is designed for people like me, there's just not a lot to do here. Buying food and toys for the cats that come visit gets old fast, though I did keep with it until I purchased everything there was to purchase. It's okay as a casual time waster, and the cats are really cute. I just don't feel like I was terribly rewarded for my time with this one. Even though I loved Paranormal Activity VR, the $30 asking price has always felt really steep. But for just $9 or $12, this game is a must-have for horror fans. The scares are intense, the graphics are great, and the sound design is phenomenal. Just be patient with the controls, especially the inventory, which can be really frustrating until you get used to them. The 2D Puzzle Bobble original was never the best puzzle game to begin with, and personally I don't think that bringing it into first-person VR did the series any favors. The aiming can be really imprecise regardless of whether you're using the moves or the DualShock, and the multiplayer mode is kind of a joke. There are things to like here, but I can't really recommend this to anyone other than hardcore puzzle fans. Survios' first game might still be their best. Raw data is essentially a wave shooter, but there's so much extra stuff here, like different playable characters with different weapons, upgradable abilities, a fun story, and even tower defense mechanics. For $10, this one comes highly recommended. The Tomb Raider VR level called Blood Ties probably isn't what you'd expect a Tomb Raider VR level to be like. Instead of platforming or shooting, you're exploring a section of Croft Manor, checking out items and reading documents. It actually looks really nice, but you know, certainly not worth buying the full game for. I'm not a huge fan of node-to-node teleportation, but Sacrolith makes it worth putting up with. It's fun to upgrade your arrows and fight through a massive wave of enemies, but without a New Game Plus option, I didn't feel like trekking through the 2-hour campaign more than once. But who knows, I might be alone on that. It's a decent game with a pretty good sale price. No. Okay, listen, Space Junkies launched at $40 without move support and only allowed for 2v2 matches. Since then, the price has dropped, and in this sale it's only $5. Plus, now it has 3v3 multiplayer and move support, so while the lobbies are most likely completely dead, I'd say you should pick it up, join our Discord, and we can get a group of people to play together. I've never had much luck with Sports Bar VR. The tracking and orientation have been busted every single time I try to play, but there are a lot of people who love this game. So, I don't know, maybe ask around and get someone else's opinion who's had better luck than I've had. Sprint Vector, the other great Survios VR game. Despite taking place on skates and needing to furiously swing your arms to move, Sprint Vector feels very much like a kart racer. The racing is fast and furious, the weapons are great, and every race is intense, especially once you've learned the tracks and figured out the shortcuts. Just like Space Junkies, this is another good one to have in your collection for when you want to get a game together. Star Drone came along when there was nothing else to play in VR, so I gave it way more attention than it deserved. So if there's anybody that knows how boring this game is, it's me. The developers of Stride recently said that they're not sure if the campaign or multiplayer will ever make its way over to PSVR or not. But even as is, I love Stride. I found the 3 game modes, which are essentially time trials, endlessly addictive. Sure, it's not perfect, but jumping, climbing, grappling, and wall running, not to mention shooting bad guys, just never gets old. Just be aware of what you're buying. Even for $2 or $3, there's like no game here. Well, there is a game, but it feels like a mobile game, and I don't mean like Quest Mobile. I mean like a cell phone game from 2002. No. I'm sure a 1v1 shooter could work pretty well, and there are hints of a good game in Telefrag VR, but even the developers admitted that they released a bare-bones shooter with plans to add in elements over time based on player feedback, none of which ever happened. Trackmania Turbo's VR mode isn't the full game, but I do think there's $10 worth of content here that'll test your VR legs. I like this one, although I do wish the game didn't randomly just pull you in and out of first-person mode. Until Dawn Rush of Blood, even 6 years after launch, still delivers amazing scares, great branching roller coasters, and classic light gun action. It's definitely worth picking up for just $6, but if you're playing on a PlayStation 5, you might want to pass. The game pauses randomly while playing, so unless there's a PSVR 2 update planned, please let there be a PSVR 2 update. Please let there be. This one might end up getting stuck on PS4. One of my favorite games of 2020, Until You Fall started off, like any good roguelite, completely impossible. But over time I leveled up my weapons and gradually got way better at the game until I finally crushed the last boss. It's a shame that Shell Games isn't bringing any of the new updates to PSVR, but for $12, you will definitely get your money's worth. Onslaught's the lesser of the 2 VR Walking Dead titles by a mile, so the retail price of $30 was a little much to ask. That said, for $12, it might be easier to appreciate what Onslaught does offer, and that's some mindless zombie killing, a ton of upgradable weapons, and a campaign that, although the story admittedly falls flat, is still canon to the AMC universe. Not to mention my favorite part of this game, fast-paced scavenging missions. So I don't know, I think for $12, you could have some fun here. Alright, well it's twice the price of Onslaught, but Saints and Sinners is a much more thoughtful Walking Dead game with some great scavenging and survival mechanics. It's one of the best games on PlayStation VR, or honestly VR in general, so even though the sale price isn't super cheap, it's well worth picking up. However, if you're trying to get the most for your money, which I assume you are if you're watching this video, you're probably better off waiting for the standard edition to go on sale again, like it did back in May for just $22. Alright, well, that's it. Hopefully you found something worth picking up, but hey, even if you didn't, knowing Sony, there's always another sale right around the next corner. Just don't forget that these 3 sales end on July 6th.